Make sure that we're actually changing this to be seen because Facebook's hiding me. Yep, they did it again. All right, so I'm going to change it. Got you. Awesome. We are live. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon with swiftfire.org True TV. Super stoked because we have a returning guest, Charlie Ward. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be back.
Yeah, so I would love to hear. I know I just told you, but for everyone who missed it, please go and watch Jason Q with Charlie last night, and he's coming back again tonight. Apparently, well, I have Jason tonight, but I think he's going on with you after. So Jason's making the rounds.
Tomorrow I have him.
Oh, tomorrow. I got the date. Okay, so Jason tonight with me, Jason tomorrow with you. And so you guys had a good time, sounds like. And I hope you guys all go back and watch the video. He has it on his BitChute, so I haven't got to watch the whole thing. I only got about 15 minutes in. But he's quite the living source energy of knowledge, isn't he?
The way I look at Jason is if people always say, show me the proof, show me the proof. This guy has got 150, 160,000 pages of proof. But he'll learn the same way as I learned, that when you give people the proof, and they still don't believe it because they're still in the third dimension.
Yeah.
It's not until you get out of the third dimension into the fifth dimension and above that you can start to see what's happening and see the truth. It's very much like being in a woodland, and you know the sky is up there, but you can't see it. You have to step outside of the trees to see things. And Jason is a really, really smart young man who's done a ridiculous amount of research. So what he says is very, very accurate because it's based on a serious amount of research. But that it doesn't always answer everybody's questions. People come back, well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. People have to go and find the information out themselves because Jason and I are not the messiahs. Or Sharnael, Dr. Sharnael, we're not the messiahs. We're just individual people that are trying to establish truth. That's all. That's all we're trying to do. And we're suggesting to you guys that you do the same. We're just going to point you in the direction where you can find it.
Yeah, I think that might be the most aggravating, frustrating thing for me is from a science point of view and a truther. You know, when all this stuff came out with the sea and now all this other stuff, I think that was just such a practice run. This whole mockingbird thing's been going on for so long. And when I literally show them the proof of like masks don't work or build your immune system or all these numbers and why are we locked down with 60 million, you know, for H1N1 and we're not locked down but 9,000 for this, and the difference between what cases equals tests, meaning, you know, and that versus actual real positives and things like that. And people, I literally have people who've said, well, we don't believe you, or we'll just find out. Or even with Jason, when he shows the paper, people have said, well, what proof do you have of this? I mean, I had Robert Steele on the other day, and he was talking about how he literally spoke with Sidney Powell several times over the last 2 weeks, and she's giving him information that's really positive for the country and the world. And we had people in the deal going, well, what's the proof? What's the proof? It's like, he just told you he literally talked to her. What do you want, like a conversation recording, or like what's going to make you have proof?
Yeah, it's like when people say, I had somebody the other day that called me out and said that what I was saying was incorrect about the quantum voting system. And I just asked them a very simple question. I said, so, okay, you're accusing me of this not being true. Can you give me any basis for what you're saying? Because I'm actually working on the quantum financial system, so I do know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do. You have a little bit, 30 years experience.
I've had a fair amount of experience, and I've mixed with the right people. And then when somebody comes out and goes, well, you're lying, and you go, okay, if I'm lying, tell me where I'm lying. Well, this doesn't exist. And I said, well, no, it won't do in your world because you know nothing about it. But it happens to be my career. And you're saying my career is a lie. Thanks for I appreciate that, but you know nothing about me. You've done no research. It's just it doesn't fit with the narrative that you're getting out of your little box on the wall.
So, same thing being a doctor. It's like, yeah, but it might, but I'm a doctor, and like you can see the science, and I have patients that are having these things happen, and I actually got taken down on Facebook for a while because they said that I didn't fit community guidelines, and I'm like, okay, all I did was share real experiences that happened with my real life patients. So how is that not fit community? Or how is the fact checker saying that that's not true? It's like, how do you know it's true? I'm telling you it's true. It's like,
Yeah.
but so where are we on all of this? Where do you think this is going? Where are we headed? I know. Are you guys locked down where you are?
We're in half lockdown, but we're going into full lockdown on Tuesday. It hasn't been announced yet, but I'm announcing it because I know it's going to get publicly announced on Sunday. But we'll go into full lockdown on Tuesday. We'll be locked down for 2 weeks. Thereafter, we'll be heading into December, and the deep state and the cabal will cease to exist half, 3/4 of the way through December. The battle is already won, but we'll have got rid of the last bits of the swamp by the end of December, so that you and me, we've already awoken. The awakening we can see, but the rest of the world will start to wake up next year. And I see that the financial reset and the revaluation, the proper one, not the one done by the New World Order, but the proper financial reset, the global financial reset, and the revaluation of currencies, the Zims, the Dong, the Dinar, will be March, April, May time of next year. And the completion of it all should be completed by the middle of next year, June of next year.
So interesting that you talked about the dates in December, because on a planet, solar, worldwide galactic situation, everyone keeps talking about December 21st and how winter solace is going to do whatever. I have a guy on tonight at 7 who's going to explain it better, but it's interesting that you said that, because that's the first time I've heard that. Maybe you've said it before and I just missed it, but I didn't realize that.
No, if I said it before, the most important thing about the 21st of December is my daughter's birthday.
Oh, nice. Interesting.
So that makes that day important.
So as far as the actual election situation, where are you? I mean, I know Jason's talking about them having to redo a whole new election with, what is it called? Blockchain?
Look, when the election happened, you have to, if we wind back the clock, 4 years ago, the organization in Canada, Dominion, tried to rig the election 4 years ago so that Hillary Clinton got in. And they tried to swing it by about 20% of the vote to make sure she got in properly. The trouble was she'd underestimated the silent majority that Donald Trump had. So even with 20% swing, she still lost. That's why she was so angry. But because Donald Trump had won, he had no reason to challenge it. But that piece of information, they decided they'd find out everything over the last 4 years. They've actually known about it for a lot longer, because it swung many, many elections. Justin Trudeau would never have got in Canada if it wasn't for Dominion.
Really?
No, not a chance. He would have lost by 70 to 30. He would have lost. He would have completely lost. And then Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand would have lost comfortably as well.
Wow.
Maduro in Venezuela would never have got in. Mexico the same. Brazil the same. I mean, there's one after the other. All of these election results have been fixed by Dominion, and we now know that Dominion is half owned by Nancy Pelosi's husband. The other thing that's very interesting is it's Dominion that have done all the statistics and figures for COVID-19.
Really?
So all the stats that have come from Dominion. So it's the same dirty septic tank that all of this stuff is coming from. So Dominion are based in Canada. Then the servers were in Germany, which was co-owned by Angela Merkel's company. So she's involved, but they've taken the servers. And they've now worked out on the servers that Trump won by 410 to 128. So it was a complete landslide. And that fits absolutely perfectly with the quantum voting system, which says exactly the same. So they've got two lots of evidence.
Wow.
And they're keeping their ace cards back at the moment. They're just starting their journey and pointing out how corrupt they actually are. And they'll expose them slowly. The company in Spain, Circa, is also, they were the people that actually did the switching of the votes. And that's co-owned by Sanchez, who's the prime minister here in Spain. So all these European countries are involved. And if you look at what Donald Trump did when he went to the Supreme Court, he verified the law that if any outside sources, any outside countries had tampered with the election, it would deem it null and void. And he clarified that before the election.
Yeah, he made an executive order, and no one's ever done that before.
Correct.
Yep.
So he had them banged to rights right from the start, but he's got them banged to rights on about 4 or 5 different points. Going back to the fact that you're in a state of emergency anyway. There's so much. And every single trap he's just set a new trap a few days ago, which is even funnier because he keeps shouting about the vaccine. We're nearly there, and Pfizer have got it. They're ready to go.
Oh, God.
He knows better than anybody that Pfizer, along with the other 3 companies, haven't followed the correct protocol. So the minute they get to rolling out the vaccine, he's going to turn around and say, right, we're ready to go. Can you show me the protocol you've worked to? Knowing that every single one of them has failed to follow the correct protocol.
That is hilarious. Well, my husband and I were talking about this because if you get COVID, you have a 99.9% chance of survival, right? Yeah. So unless you're over like 74, that's the percent, right? But Brian, my husband, he had said that Pfizer had came out with a 90% survival rate. But that they're also saying, Fauci and everyone's saying, but you might have to have more than 1 shot, and you're going to have to wear a mask still. Which forever everyone said lockdowns for 2 weeks, and it was lockdowns for 4 weeks, and it was lockdowns for 8 weeks, and then it was like, oh, well, not until we get a vaccine. Well, now they're saying they actually have a vaccine, but they still want everybody to wear the masks. But here's the part that's funny: is they said 90% Pfizer had, and then Moderna came out the next day with 95%. So suddenly within hours, Pfizer came back and go, oh, well, we're 95% too. It changed like in a day to be 95%. But the point is, if you absolutely do nothing at all, you have a 99.9%. But if you get the vaccine, you only have a 95%. So automatically they're telling you, which they have to because of karmic law, it's going to kill 5% of the population if everyone gets it. And they're telling you that straight. That this is now yeah. Jason Q says that the vaccines aren't really vaccines. He's saying that it's a military code for the key ballot system, the blockchain system.
It is. It's rolling out the digital voting system, the quantum voting system. That's exactly what it is. It's all code. Trump is a master 5D chess player, and he's just tying them up in knots. He's played them at their own game. The problem is the differences with Trump is he's on his game. This lot are not on their game. They've got very complacent, and every single trap he set for them, they've jumped in with both feet.
Yeah, this morning too. A little bit before we got on, Sidney Powell was on a special conference, and she said that Dominion just overnight disappeared out of all their offices. They're just all the executives have vanished. Their offices are clean. Everything's gone. They're running away. They're pooping in their pants on fire pants. Oh, they're scared.
They're running, and the chairman of Pfizer has sold his 63% or 62% shareholding in Pfizer.
I do not.
You don't do that if you've got a vaccine that's going to save the planet, do you?
Whoa, I didn't know that. And we know how many CEOs sold out and just stepped down, like what, a year ago, I think?
Yeah. All of this is all pantomime, though, Sharnael. This is all pantomime because everything is now done. This is now just playing out for the public. This is all pure pantomime, but it's lovely to sit back and watch. The victory is won. It's over and done with, and he's just going to expose them slowly, so they suffer a slow, painful death.
Well, yesterday or last night, I think it was, I saw the governor of California come on and apologize for going out and having a party. He had a big party with all these medical people at a restaurant. And he was like, I made a bad decision. I shouldn't have stayed with my wife. I should have just got up and went in the car. It wasn't wise. And yet people are literally on the beach alone, 1,000 miles from anybody, and getting arrested with handcuffs or, in a boat somewhere in the ocean, and they're tracking them down, and they're not wearing a mask in the ocean off the coast of California, and they're being arrested. I mean, it's like with 6 months. But yeah, this guy's like, oops, if he just says, I'm sorry, it's like everything's fine now, right?
Well, Trump is trying to expose them for what they are, the deep state, the cabal. Most of the governments around the world are still run by the deep state and the cabal, most of them. And he's just exposing them. He's not going to come in like Clinton and Obama and force regime change. He's not going to do that. He's going to point out to the Americans and to the rest of the world how corrupt our governments really are. And when we move across to Nesara and Gesara, all of our governments will cease to exist. They'll have to stand down. And then it'll be down to us to decide who we want to represent us. And if we look in the same swamp for people to represent us, we need to go and see a brain surgeon.
Oh, that's funny. Well, why everybody's on here? If you are on here, if you could please share this to as many people as you want while we're talking. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. If it's a Twitter, tweet, Facebook, whatever, I just want to make sure this word gets out, because I'm going to ask a very important question coming up right here. Talk to us about Gesara and Nesara, because I have so many people who really don't understand what this even is and how this looks, like as far as it rolling out. What are the basics of it? Because people are not really having studied and or look into it. I know you're like the king understanding of this.
I've never been called a king before.
Oh, just a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Doctor, yes.
When it comes to Nesara, which is national for America, Gesara is for the rest of the world, global. This is all a financial recovery act, which there's two different plans. Be very, very careful here not to mix them up, because you've got the New World Order that are trying to deceive you with theirs.
Good point.
Then you have Donald Trump and the alliance, which have theirs. And every country in the world has signed up to this, not realizing the fact that it's probably going to cost them their jobs. But they didn't have a choice. They were between a rock and a hard place. But at the moment, before it looks like Nesara was announced on the 2nd of November by an executive order that Donald Trump signed. And if you read that executive order of the 2nd of November, you'll get clarity. I did a video with Joe Hull, who exposed it. It was brilliant. And then you look at the fact that his identity on social media went from president to political candidate, which announces the first step is to announce that he's no longer president. And it also announces in the executive order that the election has to be in 120 days. It mentions that in the executive order, yeah.
So November 2nd, 101. Okay.
March the 3rd would be the election. March the 2nd, March the 3rd.
Wow, I was just so mad about that. I did not connect that till you just said that. I was literally mad, like they were being disrespectful. But keep going. I'm sorry. That's just blowing my mind a little bit.
Well, we have a pretty good feeling and fairly good intel that he's in control of most of the social media right now. So it might have looked like the black hats were doing it, but it may well have been the white hats.
Dude. So that would be March 3rd. So you think there'll be a new, so what happens on March 3rd?
Well, once we get through the dismantling of the corruption, which will be done by the end of this year, then it falls to us to choose who we want to represent us. And if we just take an example of California, it'll be for the people of California to choose probably from 4 or 5 representatives that will put themselves forward, who they would be happy to represent them in California. And that's what I say again. If you start looking in the same swamp that's just been drained, then you need to see a brain surgeon. In California, you've got a lot of retired businessmen and women who actually care for people, who are not involved with the corrupt film business, who are not involved with the corruption and evil people that are there, that are just good, upstanding citizens. And that's proven when everybody said to me, oh, California, that's definitely blue, that'll never go red. It's proven when you look at the facts that most people in California actually voted for Trump. And yet they won't really believe that, because they've been paying these people to flip the result.
So they'll be able to pick someone, California.
I would suggest that there'll be 5 or 6 people that will put themselves forward and say, fine, now you've drained the swamp, I'm quite prepared to represent you. And then the people of California, as an example, will get to choose, either through a debate or whatever, as to who's a person that they would trust to look after their interests. And then that person will be then, over the next year or so, be responsible for building a far smaller government than there's ever been before. Because at the moment it's top heavy all over the world. You've got far too many people in politics, too much red tape, too much absolute garbage. Because when we move away from admiralty law in America to constitutional law, then the constitutional law only has really 6 rules. I don't steal from you, you don't steal from me. I don't hurt you, you don't hurt me. I don't kill you, you don't kill me. That's the fundamentals. That's common sense law. All this other stuff is put in there, tax laws and everything else, is to rob us blind. Even speeding fines, just to rob us blind. We should be old enough and wise enough to have common sense that when we drive past children in a school, we should slow down. When we're on a motorway, there's nobody on there, we can put our foot down. I look at some of the roads in America that are absolutely straight for miles and miles and miles, and you have a 50-mile-an-hour limit, and you go, who on earth came up with that absolute rubbish? Because when you're in the middle of nowhere, you can go down Route 66 and you could be having pedals to the metal and be doing 120, 140 miles an hour. Nobody's on the road, and you can be absolutely fine. But then if you see a car coming, you slow down. It's common sense, but they've taken common sense away so they can control us and fine us and make loads of money out of us. So there's just things. So when we talk about Gesara, when we talk about the fundamentals, first of all, the law changed from admiralty law, which means you've been a commodity all your life and you've been traded on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
Going back to being a human being, as Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon is, you'll be that person rather than you as a corporation that is being traded and has probably been traded for $4 or $5 million in your lifetime, maybe more. You go back to being a human being, a living soul.
Yep.
That's the first step. The second step is getting rid of the old taxation system, the old taxation which keeps us indebted for life. The banking system where they print money, which if I'd thought of it would have been really clever, but at the moment, because I didn't think of it, was something. If you can print money and then give it to people, then want it back with more money, interest and tax, what a brilliant idea! Just carry on printing it. Well, that's what they've been doing. So to take us out of this world of enslavement, if you like, enslaved to the banks, to move us away from that. And there's an interesting point to make there about compensation between people who've been robbed all their life. And you imagine somebody who's old in America that's been robbed all their lives, and they've woken up to the fact their pension's been robbed as well. And suddenly that they, under this new regime, you're able to live in a financially secure and stable world. Know that in the middle of winter, if you're up in the north of America where it gets biting cold, that you can keep yourself warm, knowing that you've got clean running water that hasn't been completely contaminated by evil people. All these things are just fundamental, basic things, but that's the basics. Getting back to an honest way of life rather than what we've been enslaved to.
Yeah, they actually trade on our birth certificate. They bet on us. I mean, even 9/11, they bet on like how many people would die, how many people would do whatever. I mean, it's like crazy how wicked and terrible when you start finding all the documents that show it. That's what a lot of it is on Hillary's laptop.
Yeah.
That kind of those kind of conversations. Of course, there's a lot more on there as well, but and that kind of goes back to too when you were talking about if he stepped down. So will he step back up again? He'll
win this election for fun. He'll be given the election because they've committed fraud. But then if we move into the world of Nesara, once he lays that out, then they'll have a choice between it'll work in a completely different format. He'll be in control by default, but we'll have an election to see who's looking after each state, and he'll be custodial for the time being. And I don't think he'll be called president. I think he'll have a new name, a new title,
which explains I guess you've heard of the book back from the 1800s that talked about time travel and mentions Trump and Barron and even Pence. And it says something about the last president.
Yeah.
And that would make sense that he could be the actual last president. And I
think he will be.
Now, you mentioned the difference between the New World Order type Gesara versus, and Nesara versus the real one. I know for one thing that they were talking about with the bad side of it or the dark side would be that people will give up all these things, but you're owned at that point. Like it's like, we'll give you all these things, but you have to, take the vaccines and, different things. So explain that a little bit.
The New World Order system is absolutely evil beyond belief. Yeah, they'll give you a house, they'll give you a car, they'll give you anything you want, but your ass is theirs. And if they want to end your life, they can end it whenever they want to, because they've got a vaccine and they just control you by 5G. You're just basically you're not a free thinking human being. You're a person that they control, and you have to have the vaccines. They say you have to do this. You might as well be a robot. And if you want to be a robot, then that's great for you. But it's not what I want. It's certainly not what I want to do for our children. I like the idea of free thinking people who can go out and be a free spirit. There was a very, very beautiful statement the other day by the leader of the Amish religion when he was asked about why nobody in the Amish religion had COVID-19. And he said, because we don't have television and social media.
Exactly. I mean, every commercial, right away from the very, very beginning, before they really could have made time to manufacture these commercials, they were ready. Like day one, day two, they were showing people on billboards and commercials wearing the masks. It's like, they couldn't have just thrown together this commercial overnight. There's no absolute way. They had movies and TV shows and everything all set up with, that takes a long time to do series with talking about all this. But yeah, it's just about the whole brain techniques to just mockingbird everybody.
Yeah.
So you got the whole, focus on what they want you to focus on. So we're creating and our creative power. They're using our creative power against us. Even when Biden got up the other day and in the background, they showed Office of the President-elect. Come on, that's very not subliminal at all. But yet they want people to come into agreement that he is in the President-elect. Of course, then the mockingbird scenario through everything on TV is the president-elect, the president-elect, president-elect. It's like, number one, they're just trying to get us to lock in and anchor into whatever it is they're saying, whatever they're seeing, and have the vision of it. So our body will create that. And then we're the ones who are creating it. They're not. They helped kind of get the ball rolling, but they're using our co-creative power. But the brainwashing techniques are not just to give you the false scenario, but to withhold the truth. So they're censoring, and deplatforming. And, even with the march that they had, a certain platform literally took the event off.
Yeah.
And they were telling people that there wasn't an event, and there was all this misinformation and disinformation to keep people just like, and then they shut down this Washington, D.C. and weren't letting some states come in at all. So it's like, oh my gosh, like they're still trying, right?
Yeah. Well, they've deplatformed me from Facebook, from Instagram, from Twitter, from YouTube, from all of them. And I discreetly set up a separate Facebook page just purely for my friends and family. That's it, just straightforward friends and family. That's it. I'm blocked on there. I've made no comments yet, none whatsoever about anything. It's just purely just set up with friends on there. I can't send messages to anybody. I can receive them, but I can't reply to them. I can't post anything on the wall. And I can't like anybody's comments that come up on there.
So Facebook did that to you, so how do they even know it's you? I mean, is it your name on there?
Yeah, my name, my picture, and everything has my details on there.
Wow.
I've got nothing to hide, but I opened up a new one, and they've just blocked. They just said, yeah, well, you can have your face out there, but you can't talk to anyone. You can't comment on anything. I mean, it's communism at its very, very best.
So it's isolation, or the idea of isolation, and the physical. And then there's the misinformation, and then the disinformation, and then withholding the truth. I mean, there's so many different keys to all of this brain power, brainwashing situation. But they forget that we're quantum creatures, and that time and space don't matter, and that truth and love overcomes everything. That's the highest frequency. And that we have the technology within us to transport and teleport and remote view and talk to one another and all these things. It's like, guess what? We can just get higher. It's forcing a lot of people to remember their power and remember that connection with God's source.
Yeah, and also remember that certain things are a God-given right. Our freedom is a God-given right. Our fresh air is a God-given right. They're trying to take away fresh air, which is a God-given right. They don't have the right to do that.
Yeah, and if you look at even the violence that's happening, I mean, have you ever once watched a riot where they're chanting like USA, USA, and like proudly waving the flag? I mean, never once. So I don't know.
It's something that you would know better than I would, because somebody pointed something out to me the other day. All the people that are rioting look exactly the same. And the question is if they're all clones.
I've actually wondered that, because I know that they did that in the Second World War.
That's right.
They did. They cloned a ton of people for the war.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've done it many wars. Who knows where else they've had to do that? But
I've had a biologist that told me that the reason they take this DNA sample from out of your inside of your nose there is just so they can create a clone. It's got nothing to do with testing for COVID-19, because COVID-19, in his opinion, didn't exist, which most of us know. But he said the fact that they're taking that sample of DNA from there rather than inside your mouth as a swab, they're going to use it to create a clone.
And that's why they have all of these DNA sites set up too, to find out, your history and what have you. They're just trying to track you and get your information. And there's cloning stations everywhere. And people don't believe that yet. I mean, not everybody, but people are starting to wake up to that. But there's a lot of people who don't believe that yet. And it's like, prove it. Okay. How am I going to take you there?
Yeah.
Talk about med beds.
Wow. Med beds, where do we start? Well, obviously, the original med bed was created by Nikola Tesla 200 years ago, but was blocked very early on because it was curing people from alien technology and all kinds of things. It's completely off the scale, but they've Donald Trump has been using med beds now for about 4 months, 3 to 4 months, mainly for the children that they're rescuing from these deep underground military bases to try and recover them, because they've been harvested underground. The problem is most of these children haven't been in contact with normal air, fresh air,
or light,
and they've died very, very quickly. So they've taken a lot of these med beds underground to see if they can use them underground. If they can work there. The biggest problem has been getting the electricity down to them, the correct atmospheres, etc., to get them to work properly. The med beds will be available to the public in around June this year. I was talking to a lady yesterday called Utsava, who came out with a wonderful theory that Nikola Tesla, who invented them, tried it out on himself. And he's currently still alive at around 200 years in South America. And apparently he tested it on his good friend, John F. Kennedy Sr.
That's what I've heard. I heard they're all in Venezuela.
That's correct. What I've heard. They're both in Venezuela.
Yep. And it would make sense that even Trump is using this, because my God, who can do like 15 rallies a day, for as many days as he did it and still just, right?
Yeah. I could do one.
Me too. Me too. I mean, you're blazing with all your videos constantly, with interviews. I think all of us are just doing everything we can to. I mean, I used to do a couple videos a week, and now I'm doing 5 or 6 a day. I know you are too, just because there's so much information that we're getting moment to moment. I mean, every single day we're getting more information, and it has to get out. And of course, you have your ginormous community, but each of us. What I'm loving about this, and this is something I don't think they anticipated either, is I'm finding more people like you and more people like me than I ever have before all of this happened. We are finding each other, and they are going to be so sad that they did not put that in the equation, to think that we would find each other, that vibrations and synchronicities would force us to find each other. And there's an amplification in all of us as we find each other. And I've been saying this for a couple decades, because I've always had when I'm a TV show, I always had people who had way different perspectives. And when I had conferences, we'd bring on a lot of people, different perspective, different experiences, because I always encourage people to have the courage to listen to other people who are different than you, because it may change your mind, literally. Like, you can expand. There's an expansion. But with the collaboration that's happened in the last few months, especially, it's brought this cross-pollination. Yes. And the cross-pollination is bringing an amplification and a multiplication, and people feel it. They literally feel it. And it's like, I woke up this morning so excited, and it's just strengthens me as a person to keep talking to people who are getting this information, and we're all just bringing it together. And they've messed up. They really messed up. And when they try to deplatform, guess what? You get more people, because they can't shut us up.
I'm living proof of that, because when I left YouTube, I had 176,000 on one channel, 50 on another, 30 on another, 40 and 20 on another, so a total of probably 230,000. And today we passed 3 million, I think.
See,
it's amazing. But people are desperate to find out the truth. They know something's not right, and when you get the numbers like that, you suddenly have a sense of responsibility to do as much work as you can to find out as much truth as you can. And it also, like when what I said to you earlier about JFK and Nikola Tesla, that's the bit of fun that you can have as well, and say, I've heard this, but I don't know if it's true yet because I haven't seen either of them. But it's quite possible that the inventor of the medbed is 200 years old. It's quite possible if you believe in the medbed. It reminds me, it takes me back to when I was younger, and I went around looking. I was lost morally, and I went around lots of different churches, and I went to one particular church in South Wales, in Wales, in the United Kingdom, and there was a pastor or a vicar or a priest or whatever they could call it, called Reinhard Bonnke from South Africa.
I know Reinhard.
What a great name, beautiful name.
Right.
And he had the power of healing people.
Yep. I'm very, very familiar with him.
Okay, well, I didn't believe all that stuff, and I saw him lay his hands on a man's legs that was in a wheelchair, and then get him up, and he started walking, and I was like, whoa, I don't like that. So I got up and I walked out because I was worried. I was like, nah, that can't happen. So I walked out anyway. Then I thought to myself, do you know what? If you believe in God and you believe God made man, then if you've got a washing machine from Hot Point and it breaks down, you take it back to Hot Point and they put it right. So on that basis, if God made a mess of this one, I can take it back to him because Reinhard had a link with God. Yep. So could you sort this one out? This one we made a bit of a mess of. Can you sort it out? That's the way I dealt with it, in a very simple way. And that gave me a peace. I thought, I believe that God made man. So if he made him, then he can also put him right if there's something wrong.
Yep. Well, we have the technology in our DNA. It's all about frequency. Yeah. And so there are key people who have been activated and or believe in their own activation of that technology within their DNA. And I, not just with Bunky, but Todd Bentley, and there's quite a few people all across the world I've seen over and over and over where it's transferable through the hands. It's actually transferable through the biofield. It's transferable through the voice and even through thought, and there's literal physical technology of this. You guys can Google CIA, teleportation, scalar waves, all of that. That's frequency. And a lot of this stuff has been out and been used for so many years, but people don't talk about it or see it or think that it's real, or they just think it's UFOs, or, it's not been, it's actually declassed. You can find it public. And I've posted a lot of this stuff, and yet we're not using it. And why is it that, I think that there's so much more that will be declassed that Tesla had put out, and that will be declassed, and that Trump has wanted to declass and fought for that. And when it does, oh my God, yeah, it's going to be a great time. And this is all ET technology that they got from, reverse engineering some of these UFOs that came down. And even the transistor, the iPhone, replicators, microwaves, a lot of the things that we do have is actually ET reverse technology engineering, but no one's talking about it, right? So, and replicators, that's something that along with med beds, where you just have this machine similar to a microwave, and you put in whatever, and you're like, I'd like a new pot for my kitchen, or I would like a scale to weigh myself, or I would like some food, or I would like a new car, and they just go boop, 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 and it creates it for you. So not only could we have Nesara, Gesara, where we don't have any debt. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just saying that would be cool. No mortgage, no student bills, blah, blah, blah. But you have, free health with med beds. You have replicators that create whatever you want. And so what would people do with themselves if they don't really have to work or whatever? I know that you talked a lot about, and Robert and some other people have talked about, having to sew so many hours in a week for community things, and, some bigger mass ideas that a lot of people do even already in Switzerland and Norway, Denmark, some of those places where they just pitch in to the community and they get free electricity. That's another thing, free electricity. Biden jumped off the cliff by saying, you know, let's do away with oil and, you know, we're going to transition to this. It's like, you know, Trump didn't go there because he knew he would lose everybody.
Of course.
But the truth is, we're going to get free energy.
Yeah.
So, and you won't have to worry about a job because you won't have any debt and you have a replicator and a med bed. So, you know, the timing of all this, who knows? You know, but I know that it's already existed. I mean, this stuff already exists, and you can look up patents for everything, including the sun. The sun is a simulated sun.
Yeah.
There's like 60 patents on a simulated sun. When are we going to get our real sun so we can get our real DNA? Yes.
Yeah. We're living in an amazing time, though. Just watching the transition from darkness into light. We're just lucky to be alive to see it.
Yes, and some people are saying community work. Yeah, basically you would just do the things you love. Like I really love working with animals and teaching, so I put in a few hours with animals and teach, and you get something else. You know, it's like a trade. But I know that you were busy. I know we were supposed to just go 30 minutes, so we went a bit over. I didn't even notice. Time is just flying, and I know you have other interviews today. What would you say to everyone in any final words, and how can people find you? I know you have some events coming up and some things too, so please just final words first.
Final words is don't panic, don't fear. We're going to have another short period of lockdown to tidy up the loose ends. By the end of this year, everything will be over. There's two places that you can find me. I've got a number of places. We've got drcharlieward.com, which you can find us, but we've also set up the Gesara Club. And the Gesara Club has got a lot of truth seekers in one place. And we'd love to have you on there as well, Sharnael. I'll speak to Lee, because he would love to have you on there, because anybody that speaks the truth, that's all we're looking for. I think we've got 25 of us at the moment, all truth seekers.
Wow.
Doctors, nurses, and truth seekers, and people out there that so people know where they can find a group of people. And you might not want to listen to my voice. You might want to listen to Sharnael. You might want to listen to Pimpy about the investments. You might want to listen to Mel K, or there's so many people on there that are very, very good people that have all got their own different perspective. Because Charlie doesn't have all the answers, nor does Sharnael. But what we are is we're pieces of a puzzle that when we put all the pieces together, you'll be able to see a clear picture.
It's true. I love that you're doing that. I didn't know you had a little group together. I would be so honored. I would be honored. And also, I would like to extend an invitation. We're going to have a panel in December. Jason and I have a show every week, and we were talking about maybe having like 6 or 7 people on a panel. And we are going to, and this part was his idea, to have people donate for the Christmas time season, for people who aren't working and for Christmas presents, and to see if we can raise some money with our information. We don't like selling our information, but if it's for donation for vets and families in need, then, but Jason and I were talking about having you. If you would like to, we'd love to have you. And we'll be in touch about that too. But so I will post all your links clickable, so everyone can not have to search out, and they can just click it right away. Also, if you guys can please go to swiftfire.org, and you can find a lot of my resources. I have the Science of Miracles, which goes into a lot of our creative power and our DNA, how to shift our lives and our biofield so we get different outcomes. And so we can stay, like Charlie's saying, to come up higher above the trees and to actually have a better picture of our own lives, the situations we've been in, and how to change it as the authors and creators of our life, and that things don't happen to us. We create them. and we can get ourselves out of those situations. So go to swiftfire.org, sign up for the free newsletter, get on all the platforms. Tonight, I actually have Christopher Carter on at 7:00. For those who want to join us, we're going to talk about the cosmos and the planets and the stars and that whole relationship with Earth. And whatever this December 21st, he's going to give us some insight on how that'll affect the planet and where we are on the planet. And then at 8:30, we have our regular show with Jason Q. So you guys won't want to miss that. We have some really cool information we're going to share tonight. But man, Charlie, I just love you. And I'm so glad you got Jason on. And I'm thankful. And the timing of that was so cool because he's here last night with you. And then you're here. And then I got him again. Then you got him again Friday. Like, we're all just working together. I love the synergy and the vibe.
It's brilliant. He's a mind of information. And getting us all together in one place is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
I'll give you the details, and I will get with your lead person about the club. All right, sir. Well, you guys have a great day. Make it great. You can. Stay true. Stay in your love. And please do me a big favor and share this. Share, tag. Make sure you get the word out. I want everyone to be able to connect with Charlie and what he's doing, because this is just an hour of your life. But he's got amazing resources and great things that he's doing. And I want everyone to be able to connect with him. So when we're finished, you can still just hop over and get way more information from what he's doing and all the great interviews. He's got great platforms and like conferences, panels, and you guys will learn from all of these people. I guarantee you, they're all truthers. They all love, and they're concerned and willing to share because of the concern of humanity. And that is something that I have just really appreciated about you, sir, and the fine experts that you've been bringing together. So thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon, guys. Have a good one. Thanks.